Welcome back to another episode of We Shoot Sports, a podcast all about sports photography. Today we have Tori Richman, a Tampa Bay photographer for the Buccaneers. Let's get started. What's up?
Hey,
How's it going?
good. How are you?
Doing well. It's Friday. I can't complain right now. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna pop on like this little thing called a ticker at the bottom that has like your Instagram. It's Tori Richman. What is your Instagram? Underscore
photography.
photography. All right. Boom. There we go.
Fancy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool system where it like has, I don't know, it's like made for live streaming, but it works really well for this because the quality's a little bit higher. So versus like Zoom or something like that. So yeah, how's it going?
It's good. Trying to keep busy, I guess, for the most part, but yeah, it's going good. How about you?
Yeah, doing well. Yeah, same. I'm ready for sports to like officially be back and get going, but I actually have a new baby, so getting to spend time with her is kind of fun. So,
How old?
what'd you say?
How old?
She's almost 8 months. Almost 8 months. So yeah, just
Pretty
a little
neat.
tiny thing. She was born right smack in the middle of football season last year. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. Anyway, I thought we'd get started kind of like with your background and how you got into photography. I think I know. Did you go to South Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you get into that, but I might have some questions about that later on.
Okay.
right.
So I actually didn't have a background in photography going into college. I went to school for journalism. I was a writer and all that. It wasn't until I joined my school paper, the Daily Gamecock, to write and went to one of the interest meetings. And they're like, if you want to learn to photograph, like, we'll teach you. And I'd always been interested in it. I didn't know anything really about like a job you could have in it. I remember like asking my parents for a camera when I was like 13, and they were like, "No, we're not doing that." Understandably so. I like never touched my guitar either, so I get it.
Yeah.
But, so I joined the paper, photographed for the stories that I wrote, and ended up really loving it. I just remember like pestering my photo editor after every time I shot, just like, let's go through the take and everything, and it was really helpful. And then I ended up switching my major to visual communications because I was like, college is the perfect time to learn.
Yeah.
I know how to write. I took writing classes. So I was like, this is like my time, my chance. So switched my major and then kept moving up through like the photo side at the paper. Photographed some of the South Carolina football games. I followed the basketball team during I followed men's during their Final Four run.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
Were you there? Were you in Phoenix?
yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we probably crossed paths. That's crazy. Yeah, I was there covering North Carolina, so
Oh yeah. So we definitely probably were.
yeah, that's crazy. Too bad they never saw each other in the game. That would have been sweet, but
It was definitely like a crazy experience because I hadn't been photographing for that long. So that was like my first introduction, which is crazy introduction to the sports photo world.
for sure.
And then I was at the South Carolina UNC game in Charlotte. Talked with some people like on the sidelines. They were like, "Yeah, if you ever want to shoot a game, like we'll credential you." And so just like it just like was like one path to like the next. Like that photographed Panthers game, and I'm from Charlotte, so I was like, oh,
nice.
Panthers. That was my first ever Panthers game too. And then applied for the NFL internship. Never even like told my mom that I applied because I was like, it was so far fetched that I was like, oh yeah, just for. And then I got an email asking for a phone interview, and I was like, oh my god, I have to tell my mom it's in LA, like I should go.
Yeah.
And then it just like all kind of like fell in place from there for the most part. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have like the photojournalism background.
Yeah.
My South Carolina, like some of my classes, I had like studio classes, but for the most part, everything I did was like from a photojournalism side.
Yeah. So is their photo department is their visual communications department separate from the photography department there or at South Carolina?
Yes. So visual communications is in the journalism school, so like mass communications, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's the like photography, like the arts in the art school.
Got
So
ya.
a lot of people will like minor in like either one and like major in the other. But I didn't do that. So
No, they have a strong program. I before I started sports photography, I probably started sports photography around the same time you did, but I used to do documentary photography, and I have a few close friends that are in the art department, like professors there. So, or were they're not there anymore. So, so were you there at the same time as Kara then, or
no,
I think actually maybe she's closer to my age.
yeah, I would say I just graduated in 2019.
Got ya. Awesome. So, talk a little bit about the NFL photo internship, and kind of like what that experience was like for you. And yeah,
Yeah, so it was really cool. I got to work like with Ben Liebenberg, who's awesome. He's a big mentor of mine. But yeah, I remember at first I was like, "Oh, it's summer and there's no sports." Like I didn't really know like what it was going to entail because for the most part I'd only done like action kind of stuff.
mm-hmm.
So it was an unbelievable experience. I got to photograph red carpet events. Like I photographed the Sports Illustrated Fashionable 50, like the red carpet, the Nickelodeon Kids Teen Choice Awards for sports. That event, I was like, never thought I'd be paparazzi, but
Yeah,
it was a cool experience. I photographed I photographed like the network sets, so when they had shows. And then I got to go to the Hall of Fame, like the Hall of Fame weekend. So that was probably the most like unreal experience was getting to do like the like the gold jacket dinner.
mm-hmm.
I was like in the green room like before it started, and it was just like all of like the previous like Hall of Famers were in the room, and I was just
Yeah, that's
like,
amazing.
this is really really cool. And I grew up like watching football and stuff, but I never was like, I couldn't list like all the people, but I that was like a moment that I was like realize how much history there is in football. And then I got to shoot the Hall of Fame game, which was really cool. And then we went to San Francisco for a preseason game. So I still got a little bit of the action, but I
A little
think,
bit of action, yeah.
yeah, learning how there's so much more to just like the action. And like a big thing Ben helped me with was like studio and, portraiture and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, that's awesome. So when for that internship, is it just you, or are there multiple interns, or how does that work?
there were other interns in other departments. I was the first photo intern that they had.
Oh
So
wow, that's
yeah,
awesome.
so it was like a learning experience for everyone. But I mean, it was definitely incredible, and it was nice having like an intern group because like being out in LA, that's the farthest I've been from home, living on my own and everything. So it was good to have like a network of people, and I'm still in touch with like a lot of them. So
That's amazing. So you do that before you're done with school, right?
that was before my senior year.
Okay, so then you come back from that, and then you finish school, and then where do you go from there?
So from there, I applied for the Bucs internship. And when I got that, moved down here to Tampa for, I think it was like in July. So right around training camp, which was a great way to just hit the ground running
Yeah,
for all of us. And then, yeah, I had my internship and then got hired on full time in February.
that's amazing. That's so awesome. So, with an internship like that, how was that different than the NFL internship? Besides just like the fact that you're obviously probably you got to shoot action with that internship, or more than I guess you did. But I mean, I would assume just based off of what you said from the NFL internship that like you did learn that there's a lot of that off the field stuff. So, but how are those two different? What have you?
I think like, because I had worked on like the media side in college and then with the NFL, and then realizing that I wanted to work with a team specifically. I think working with a small group of players, having like a brand to work with, having, I guess, like that team identity was something that I was looking for, that I think like I could kind of like focus in more and just have like, okay, so this is a group, this is what we're working with. So I think that was a big thing, compared to the NFL, because we were league wide, so it was like all the players or all the teams, or we just kind of were overall. Whereas I was definitely looking for something more, I guess, like team based, kind of like that smaller sense of, having the, I guess, yeah, like having the identity to work with. And especially the Buccaneers have such a cool, I mean, the pirate ship in the stadium was just so cool to me. I remember when I first got the internship, my dad told me, first thing he was like, there's a pirate ship in the stadium. So I think having that was a big thing that learning curve, I guess I would say, for me, was that I was like, this is the group of people that we're working with, and understanding the access that I had, and stuff like that. So
Awesome. So talk a little bit about like as an intern, what it was like versus now that you're like officially one of the team photographers. Is there two of you? Is that right? Is Kyle the other one?
yeah.
So the difference is, I guess, between responsibility in terms of, maybe it's the same, I don't know, but if there's any differences between like being an intern and covering it that way versus now like being one of the official photographers. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle was really, really great about preparing me to be a team photographer. I mean, I think I looked at the internship as like, all right, like we're here, we're gonna make the most of it, and just being trusted is a really, really big thing, to do the big things, but still being able to learn from Kyle. He's really, really good with his studio stuff. I mean, even now I'm like, so why did you put that there? Like, I'm always like trying to learn. But I think a big thing, it's kind of hard because we haven't been in the office yet.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I was only there for almost a full month, and then we got sent home. So I think the biggest thing would just be some of the meetings, I guess, like some of the discussions that I'm included in more than I was as an intern. I mean, I still was in meetings, but I guess like the role that I play in them is a little different. I think personally my outlook is different because I didn't know if I was staying on full, like I had like an end date, with the internship, like, it's till end of season. So it was different, thinking that, oh, I can only have these ideas, or I guess, what am I trying to say? That it's less long-term thinking, like,
Yeah, I got you.
of like, well, I'm only gonna be here for this long, and now being able to be full-time, I'm kind of seeing like where things can go in like 2 years or 3 years, or I guess in that sense. But my internship was really, really helpful. I mean, I definitely think the transition was pretty seamless. I mean, Kyle trusted me with a lot of things, and it was never, I guess it was never, especially organization wide, it's like you're not like the intern, like you're given a job and you do it, and everyone trusts you to do it. And if it's something you don't know, like they'll teach you so that you can do it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's great to have like a mentor like that, that's willing to like, let you have like a real seat at the table instead of treating you like an intern. Um, so walk through like a game day for you, like, I guess if you've noticed any differences, like, because you worked for the paper at South Carolina, and like you weren't, like, if you were shooting football, you weren't part of like the team photographer group for South Carolina. So what's the difference between like how you prepare and how you kind of go through a game day, covering it as like a team photographer versus like being just like with the news or with a newspaper or something like that? I know it may be a little different because you're a student, because you were a student, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing and learning curve for me was the access. I remember like the first like 2 home games, Kyle was like, come on, like you can come on the field, because I was so used to like pregame, like being, having like that can't go past this line or anything. And so that was a big thing, as like being with the team, that you can go where the team is and the team knows who you are and stuff like that. And then, but I guess a typical game day, we get there couple, maybe like 4 or 5 hours before, depends on what's happening during the game. And then we get set up, do locker room photos, uniforms, and then player arrivals. That's a big thing. I love player arrivals. I mean, I just love seeing the guys. Like, it's their personality is just coming through. So getting that, it's maybe like an hour, maybe like 45 minutes of like when we first get there, that it's like kind of downtime. But it's pretty much like we're going from the minute we get over to the stadium, as opposed to being with the paper. Like, I remember I would just go down like the 30 minutes before the game started, and just kind of like go from there. But having all the behind the scenes stuff, like Kyle gets photos when the players are, doing the eye black in the locker room, and then warm-ups, and once they're in their pads and stuff, like those warm-ups. So it's a lot of like the stuff before, and then it's like once the game starts, then it's like kind of just more like action-based, but also it's I guess I have like more of a direction, whereas before, when I was with the paper, I was like, so the overall game, because we were editorially independent, so we weren't like rooting for South Carolina, but obviously awesome. They were the team, so that's why people were reading. So we would take photos, but it was mostly like from like an unbiased perspective. But with the Bucs, it's, getting our players' faces, making sure that, I'm not going to be taking pictures of the other team's quarterback, so stuff like that. So I think it's an easier way for me to just like know like what I'm getting, like which players I'm getting, and I know the players, so it's easier to kind of like figure that way around.
Mm-hmm. What about afterwards? So you're finished with the game. I'm assuming. Well, I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about this. What is your at Tampa Bay? What's the team made up of? So like in terms of like photographers, graphic designers, social media, that kind of thing. Because I'm assuming, I don't know. I'm sure you go through and edit afterwards and like cull. But maybe if you're giving photos during the game, maybe people are handling that for you, or
yeah. So we have like a game day editor, and then I think 4 or 5 freelancers for home games, and then we have people are transmitting wirelessly, and then we also have card runners. And then with the editing, once those photos get sent over, you'll edit and then send them off to social, and design will have access to the photos. So it's just kind of like, it's a very like smooth process, because I edited for away games during my internship. So it was really nice to learn like what the editing process is like, because it makes photographing like easier to understand. So I'm like, okay, so I know that this is what I would be looking for when I was editing, or knowing like the speed that things kind of come in. And then, so things get out pretty quickly, especially with wirelessly transmitting. And then, we'll just have our team of designers, kind of everyone's just like on hand, ready to go.
Yeah.
And then after, we'll go through and edit everything for galleries and stuff.
Gotcha. That's, what was that? Oh, you mentioned freelancers. So are those freelance photographers as well, or are those just different types of freelance media members on the team?
Photographers, yeah.
Oh, wow. So that's awesome. So, like, sometimes on game day, you guys might have up to, like, 5 photographers or so, or...
Yeah, so we have Mike Carlson, Matt May, Jason Parkhurst, and Casey Lawson. Sometimes, like, someone else thrown in, stuff like that. But because we have a lot of working on the team side, like having a lot of different like departments that have photo needs aside from just, the football action, like making sure like events are getting covered and fan shots and different promotional stuff. So kind of having like all of our bases covered.
That's awesome. Wow, that is. I had no idea that there would be that many. Um, Let me think. I had another question about that. It might have escaped me. I'm sorry. Um, oh, so now it's different from like game day at home versus game day away. So if you are covering an away game, how much staff do you have with you that actually travels to the game and like does it that way? And then like you said that you like when you were doing an internship, you were editing back at home. So how many are working at home during a game day that's away? I don't think we think about that very often because
Yeah.
like there's still work to be done even though like if you're a part of the team, even if you're not traveling. So I think of that sometimes as a weekend off. So
Yeah, no, it was nice. So Kyle and Mike traveled, so it was like two photographers, and then I edited from the office. So I would just like have the game on and just kind of like have my monitors and everything set up ready to go. Um, Social would travel. Designers would either come into the office or they would work from home. I just liked going in the office because I had my monitors.
yeah.
So yeah, that was our away game setup. And yeah, I mean it worked great. I don't know what travel is gonna be like this year, but
Yeah.
that's what it was like last year.
That's yeah, that is so fascinating to think about. I don't know. I just like have never thought about it that way. That there's still I don't know why. I just because I haven't shot for a football team like that. I cover a wrestling team, but yeah, I just like had never thought about that. That's so interesting. So as far as like internship, if you guys are like, so that's awesome. You were hired on. What does that look like now in terms of internships for the Buccaneers? Will there still be some photography internships, or now is it a full team? Or how does that look?
Um,
I mean, I don't know if that looks different a little bit because of COVID too. So
yeah, it's hard to say, especially with COVID. But I think for now, I don't think there is an internship. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say with COVID.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think for now, we'd at least probably hold off. But
yeah.
the, there's other departments with internships. So
Hmm.
just, I
How
just,
did you know when you were finishing up college that that was your next step, like that you wanted to try to get on with an internship with a team or with a team or um, versus working at a paper or maybe going and finding a different job with like I don't know, maybe even the NFL, like in a different capacity or something like that.
I think because I thought I would go with the photojournalism side until I had the NFL internship. And I think having like seeing like how things worked behind the scenes, and then meeting some of the team photographers, like when I was out in San Francisco, I met Meg and talking with them and just seeing like how they interacted with players and the relationships that are built with players and coaches and the designers, and like you just kind of connect as a whole, like as a team, which I really wanted. I thought that getting to work with a group of 53 players, knowing who they are, what they're about, getting to see them practice and start to understand them, how the team works, how the coaches work, where I can be, where I can't be, and being in meetings with the designers and with video and the creative team, and just kind of having that like central goal was something that I wanted to really work with. But also wanting to kind of like take my photojournalism background and see how I could apply that to a team. So
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I have noticed that like there's more and more women that are, a part of the teams. And I mean, I just think it's awesome. I've met Meg and Kim, and I mean, it's just awesome to see that kind of pop up. And now you, it's just great. Um, what was I going to ask you? Oh, pivot back real quick for me. So you're working at the paper, you start doing photography in that way. How did you get into sports? Did you know all along, like, I want to shoot sports? Or, like, what made you, what kind of brought you to that realization?
I had actually no idea. At the paper, it was like event kind of news photography, and then there was the sports photography. And my photo editor one day asked if, that's something I would be interested in kind of branching out to do as well. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, that sounds fun. Like, I love sports. And the first game that I went to go photograph was a soccer game. And I used to play soccer, so it was easier to follow for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And yeah, so it was a cool experience. And then I did my first South Carolina football game, and I just remember being so like sensory overload. Like I like remember like coming out of the tunnel and being on the field, and I was like, especially in South Carolina with like sandstorm and the towels and everything, and I was just like, whoa, this is insane. And then actually photographing football, I just loved that I was like watching it in a different way. Like, I'd watched football games before, and I just ended up having like a greater appreciation for football. When I was, looking back at photos and being like, well, I didn't even like I wouldn't have seen that just watching, on TV. And so I kind of liked seeing it in a different way. And basketball, I loved photographing basketball. And then football just kind of like, it's just like next thing I knew, it just kind of, it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing football. And I genuinely really, really loved it. And yeah, I just can't really see myself doing anything else. Like, I remember with my internship, I was like, I want to stay with the team. I want to stay, in the NFL. And then, yeah, I think if I told like freshman year of college, Tori, like, hey, when you graduate, you're going to work with an NFL team as a photographer, I would have been like, where does that even come from?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what led me to sports. Yeah, I mean, I always think like my path was so, in a way, like not really my choice. It was kind of like the fates decided it for me, I guess. Like, I feel like I was supposed to end up here at some point. It was just something nudged me along the way. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's great though that you figured that out before you were done with school, because I feel like sometimes that's like half the battle. It's just kind of figuring that out. I figured it out way late, and now sometimes it's hard. Like, like when you see like some of these internships, like with NFL photo or whatever, it's like, oh, you have to be able to get college credit for it. And it's like, dang it, how? Should I go back to school or, and so I always tell my students, I'm like, figure it out as soon as you can, because it's just better that way if you can
yeah,
do it.
I mean, that was my biggest thing going into college was I decided on journalism because I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like,
Hmm.
I wasn't good at math. I wasn't good at science. I wasn't interested in it.
Hmm.
I enjoyed history, but I was like, what do I do with that? And it's like, I don't want to be like, I didn't know. I was like, I'm literate. I can write. And I took a journalism class my senior year, and I was like, oh, so this is like a job that I can do and I can write. And so that's kind of the only reason I was going into journalism. But yeah, I mean, I was like, I have no idea what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that I kind of like fell into photography. But
Yeah, no, that's great. So great. So we'll pivot back one more time. So what does the off season look like for you? I mean, I'm assuming, how do I even ask this? Because this is like your first season. It's COVID, so it's
yeah.
like an anomaly. It doesn't happen. But um, if you were in the office, those first few weeks that you were there, what did that look like, your schedule for the next upcoming? I mean, I'm sure at that point you didn't think like, oh, we're gonna get Tom Brady, but but
No, no. Definitely. It would have just been, mini camps, OTAs, different events happening, whether it's in the community, like I was photographing flag football, where our team went out, well, our community relations team went out to middle schools throughout the Tampa area. And for gym class, they, taught them flag football. And so I went out to all of those and photographed, which was really nice, getting to see kids, figure out, how to play football. And I was very jealous of the recess time kind of that they had to run around. And then, yeah, so different events that would have come up, OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and then I guess asset shoot, and stuff like that. So I think that's what the off season would have looked like. I was super excited. Once I got hired on, I was like, because I started during training camp, so I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like I can start, from an off season and figure out what that looks like. And now I'm like, well, I guess I'll figure it out next year.
Yeah. Are you guys also in charge of like the archives or I don't know what other kind of editing there would be. I'm trying to think. I mean, because you guys have social or like graphic designers and stuff like that kind of handle some of that stuff for you that you don't have to think about probably. But in terms of the archive, what does that look like? Are you having departments contact you and say like, I need this photo from 2002? Is that part of your responsibilities as well, or?
Yes, yeah, and we use Photo Shelter, Libris. That was new for like last year, and so we in the off season we've been working on getting everything put on there.
Oh, wow.
So that we can have the full archive and everything on there. So it was, I guess, like a blessing in disguise that we kind of had the time.
That's a lot of work. That's so much work. I have had to do that a few times for a few different brands, and goodness gracious, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, but it's definitely like in the long run, it'll be good because even, when we started, just being able to quick send and sharing galleries and different stuff like that. So,
for sure. So, in terms of, being a team photographer, I'm assuming that's like year round. You guys have responsibilities. Is there any time for freelance for you right now, or have you been able to do that at all since you've been down in Tampa, or what does that look like for you? I think for some reason I want to say I remember you like covering a Super Bowl or something, but I don't know if that was like
that was
NFL or if that's Tampa or.
Yeah, that was with the NFL. I was running cards for that. I did it this year and then the year before in Atlanta.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so that was really cool. But during season, wasn't a lot of downtime because I mean, there was things on the weekends, and then it's hard when games are on Sunday, and then you work Friday, and then sometimes if it's really like, well, Saturday's my only open day.
Yeah.
So no, I haven't gotten a chance to freelance. And then I guess the only time I would be in the off season, but that's not really an option. I definitely miss photographing, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I was just curious because you said you love photographing basketball so much. So, I'm trying to think. Florida is like, there's so many teams and schools down there that sometimes I have a hard time piecing it together. Like, what is in Tampa Bay? What colleges are around that area?
Yeah, USF and University of Tampa. Yeah, I'm still figuring out my way around Tampa because, even during season, like once the season started, I was at first like moving out. I was like, oh, I'm moving to Tampa, the beach in Florida. And I think I went to the beach once, and that was like the first week that I started working, and I like haven't been back since, kind of thing, which I don't mind. I like being busy, but yeah.
for sure. That happens for some reason. I don't know why that is. When we lived in Charleston, we never went to the beach. I've been to the beach more
Mhm.
since we live in Chapel Hill now. So,
Yeah, I saw some people like posting pictures like at the beach back home, like North Carolina. I was like, "Oh, I wish I lived at the beach." And then I was like, "Oh, I live in Tampa. I live at the beach."
yeah, that's funny. Um, so can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been? And feel free to like dig into this as much as you want, or you can pull back. You don't like you're free to do whatever you want. But just as a woman in sports photography, um, I
Yeah.
mean, I would just from the surface, I have no idea what you've been through or anything like that. But it seems like you've had some pretty positive experiences that. So yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much every experience has been positive. I mean, spare for a few, people that like catcall, like, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm doing my job, like, leave me alone.
yeah,
And um, I mean, the usual, like, well, it's a big camera for such a small girl. And I remember a couple times when I was out with the NFL, and I went to events alone. Like Ben was like, "Here's your camera, go and do what you got to do." And there was a couple times that someone would be like, "Who are you with?" And I'm like, with the NFL." And they're like, "No, like really, who are you with?" And I was like, "I'm with the NFL." Like, why would I make that up? I'm with the NFL.
yeah.
Um, and so, other than that, I mean, I really don't think that don't think I've had like anything that's like that was like a really bad experience. I mean, pretty much all the photographers I've met are really really great. I don't really notice that like, oh, I'm the only girl in the room or I'm the only girl on the sideline or anything. I
Mm-hmm.
don't notice it until someone else points it out to me. I guess, but I also like will say like I know that there is, it is a largely male dominated field, and I just think like women are really starting to, you know, get especially like girls in college, like the like having the access I think to athletic departments and the access that you have, on social media and stuff. I think that helps a lot. I mean, that's how I figured out like what sports photography was. That's how I followed the team photographers and Ben and Logan, and that. So social media I think helps a lot. And I think seeing, like for me, I remember when I first started, the first person that I really saw on social media that was a female team or female photographer, especially was Melissa with the Panthers.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I want to be like her, and
Yes.
getting to work with
In
her.
more ways than one, right? She's
This
just
is
she's
awesome.
freaking
And
awesome.
yeah, I did some freelance with the Panthers as well, and so like having, I think women to look up to and having women that are willing to help and wanting to help, I think also helps like to bridge the gap of getting it into the field. And I think with the internships and with a lot of teams moving over to like in-house photography, I think that helps a lot too. But I would say most of the time it's really like kind of like the crap that I get from people. It's never really from um, other photographers, and if it is, it's from an older guy, and most of the time like it's like a harmless kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I personally can't say I've had a bad experience, but I definitely think that at some point I would love to get to where we can just be like, I'm a photographer, and I'm a team photographer, instead of having I'm a female photographer, I'm a female team photographer, and just
Yeah.
a photographer. And it's great working at the Bucs, especially because the Bucs are like, I mean, with Coach Lowe and Coach MJ, like they definitely like lead the charge, and having the diversity of women and stuff. So I think to be like one of the female team photographers and also being with the Bucs is really awesome. And I mean, even like the players, like there's so many times where like I'm just like, like they're so tall in general. Like they're tall to like any person, but I'm only like 5'3". So there's like a lot of times where I'm just like,
That is awesome though if you think about it. Like you just automatically get that low angle. That's amazing.
yeah. So I've had to learn that like, I remember like seeing at Super Bowl, like my first Super Bowl, just like everyone going into like the like mosh pit and everyone's just like sticking their hands up. And I was like, my hands are going up there. So let's just go
I
up.
feel like that too.
Yeah. So I was like, if I'm not tall enough or, I'm not able to like get up there, whether it's because I'm just short or a woman, I don't know. But it makes me have to think differently. And sometimes it's better. Like I'm the only person that's, going to get that shot from, on the ground or, from, from underneath. Like there's one picture I have, from the huddle for our last game, and Kyle was like, "Oh, like why don't you go do the huddle?" And I was like, "Okay." And I go like running over, and then they all start running over, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get this like picture," and then they just like kept coming in, and I was like, "I can't," and I was I'm like, "Carlson, he's doing this," and I was like, "I'm getting like the back of helmets."
Yeah.
And so they just kind of kept coming in, and I was like, "All right," and I ended up just like crouching down, so they're all over me, and so I just point directly up, and ended up getting like all their hands, and it was ended up being a really cool shot, but it was.
Is that one on your Instagram?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I gotta find this. Let's see if we can find it.
Yes, I think it's with JPP. But yeah, so that was one where I was like, my size is my worst enemy, but also like my best friend sometimes, and just kind of like learning to work with it.
Dang, I'm trying to see if I can find it. Here, I'll pull it up. Maybe you can tell me where it is.
Okay.
Let's see here. Let's see.
I think it's down just a little bit more.
Oh, this one?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes, that was fully like completely crouched and bending up, and just I think for me, like my biggest thing is I never want to like be in the moment to where I take away from like what's happening. Like I want things to be genuine and as it happens and stuff like that. And so for me, I was like, I'm not here, like I'm not in the way. And I think so as you can tell, there's just like arms, everyone is just completely over me. And then
a great photo.
Some of the tunnel photos for like player introductions. Once like the first group of players run out, I like position myself like I think there's one of the one with like Carlton running out.
Is it this one?
Yeah, that one. There I would whichever player I decided to like swap behind, I'd like tap them on the leg. I'm like, hey, I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
just let me know. And they're like, okay, yeah, you're good. And so I would just like I'm just completely squatted behind a player and just like leaning out as they would run and then like squat back. So sometimes I'm like being a girl, being small, whatever, can help, especially like crowded sideline. There's like a small little space. I'm like, I can fit. I'm gonna squeeze over there.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was I gonna ask you? Oh, I gotta ask the question since you brought it up. Have you ever been toppled before, at all?
No, thankfully.
That's so awesome. That's great.
I've had close encounters. Like I've had a couple of times where like I'm in a spot and then for some reason I decide to move and then like the next play like a player will just like completely like bulldoze through and I was like, oh, like I was like right there.
Yeah.
And then I came close to, it was so embarrassing. I didn't even get hit, but it was the Saints game, and I almost got like hit in the head when Chris went to like spike the ball, but he didn't hit me. Like he hit the wall behind me, and like it was fine. Like, and I didn't move because he wasn't like running towards. Like it was fine. And then like next thing I know, I'm getting like all these texts from people and they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" Like,
You okay?
and I was like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?"
They
And then
probably saw him coming towards you.
yeah, and then I see the replay on TV or like on like the jumbotron, and it's just like it looks like he was really close, and I just kind of like move like that, and it like hits back here, but there was distance, and
Yeah.
so everyone thought I got hit, and then like the next day in the office, people were like, "Oh, I saw that," and I was like, "Imagine if I got hit, like and." Like I didn't even get hit in this instance, and like so many people were talking about it. But no,
Yeah.
I've not been hit.
Yeah. You
I've had
shot Panthers, you said, right? So,
mhm.
goodness gracious, when Cam goes to pick up a ball and starts taking it to the kids, I'm like, you
Mhm.
never know where he's gonna go. Sometimes that's terrifying.
Yeah, I think the most dangerous is like in like the post game scrum than like
Yeah,
anything on the sideline,
picking
honestly.
some elbows.
Hmm.
It's so funny, I think people think just because football players are so much bigger and that kind of thing that that's like the most terrifying thing to shoot, but honestly, basketball where you can't move sometimes is more
Hmm.
frightening to me. Like
Yeah,
seeing somebody like Zion Williamson just bolting at you is terrifying.
yeah. I mean, all you can do is duck, like
Yeah.
a couple times, or like the ball is just—it's so close to you. Like there's a couple like South Carolina games where I was just like, oh, like block the ball, or
Yeah.
one of the players just like stops right here, and I'm like, oh, thanks for stopping.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like with football, like I could at least like, there's some place to go,
Space.
I guess, and you're not like completely sitting. Like I always make sure I have like one knee on the ground and the other one so I could like roll up and, as Ben always says, like head on a swivel kid. But
Oh, that's great.
yeah, but I'm also like I would feel worse if like a player got hurt for running me over than
Yeah.
like I would, because I'm like, I don't know, like they're just doing their thing, and like
Yeah.
they have no idea like who's where. I'm like, I can at least like move myself,
See
but
it coming. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. Um, so you were just mentioning like being in different sections on the field. When you guys are shooting as team photographers, since there's multiple, are you covering a certain area like you would for like, like a ball game or the Super Bowl or something like that for
mhm.
each game, or are you moving around and just kind of all covering different things?
Yeah, we normally have like our spots on the field. It kind of will vary. One game I'll be a floater, and then the other game, I'll be back in our end zone or something like that. But yeah, so we do that just, making sure we have all of our bases covered, and there's always someone there. And just especially with all the different things that are happening, in between, like the quarter breaks, and they have Publix is doing, like a giveaway or something, or getting, photos of the cheerleaders and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's good to have like everyone kind of everywhere, so that we're able to make sure we get everything that's not, football too.
Hmm. Do you guys have during a game? What's that access like to the bench?
Um, I think we normally will try and stay out of the bench
Hmm.
during the game, just because they're doing their thing, and
Yeah.
not trying to not trying to get in the way. But like right, pretty much like at the end of the game, we can kind of like start to shift our way in. Pre-game, definitely have access. But yeah,
That's some of my favorite times to shoot, especially Panthers, like just watching them warm up and get excited and just
mhm,
get going.
yeah,
Um, yeah, pregame is like sometimes I'll get there early just so I can shoot more pregame just because it's so interesting to watch
mhm,
them like when they're completely relaxed and they haven't missed a catch or whatever it is that's kind of put a damper in their day or even caught like had a catch and
mhm.
it's just interesting to watch them kind of in their zone and how they get ready.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting. Like they all have their own kind of routine that they do.
Hmm.
Um, I remember that was the scariest thing for me was like the first few games, like pre-game. Kyle was like, you can like, like make sure you're not getting in their way, but like, they know that you're there and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, they're gonna be like, I don't want to get in their way or get too close or
Hmm.
something like that. And as the players got used to seeing me like at practice and stuff like that, it was less of like, who is this person and why are they in my face kind of thing. And I knew like, okay, so this is what, like, they're gonna just start running, so I'm not gonna stand in front of them. I'm gonna like stand off to the side. But yeah, that was definitely like the scariest thing for me at first. It was like, I just don't want to mess anyone up. Like I don't, I don't want to get in the way. And once they like, pretty much like once the whole team is out there warming up, I remember like the first time I was like, oh my God, like don't get run over. Like I was, of anything, I was like, please don't get run over. And I mean, the players were good about, if they needed like more space, they'd be like, okay, like, and like, hey, we're gonna be coming this way. And I was like, okay. And so like I would move. So there was always like some kind of warning or but for the most part.
That's interesting. I haven't really thought about that before, but you're exactly right. Like, we definitely want all the access we can get, but sometimes it's like definitely like a delicate balance to kind of figure out and get used to having that access. Yeah. No, that's great.
Because it's I'll say like a big thing is like they're getting ready to do their job. And yeah, like it's delicate balance of like, I'm trying to do my job and you're trying to do yours, but I don't want to mess you up. And I think especially like understanding like which players, are, if they're listening to music and they're like walking, to not just like be running alongside them like, hey, I'm like trying to get this picture. And just, respecting like that they're getting ready for their game and stuff is a big thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right, I gotta ask the question I ask everybody. What do you shoot with? What's your go-to? Canon, Nikon, Sony? Where are you at? I was stunned to learn. I don't know if you got to listen to the podcast that because we just launched like this week, but Kelly shoots Olympus, and I was like, that's freaking awesome. Like, I don't think I know anybody that shoots Olympus. So, speaking of gear, if you've never checked out Lens Rentals, you really should. I've used their products and services multiple times over the years, and I can honestly say that I've never had a bad experience with them. This year, they're doing a Father's Day gift certificate sale, where if you purchase a gift card, you'll receive an additional gift card for yourself with 10% of the value of the card you're buying. So for instance, if you spend $100, you'll get a $10 card for yourself. If there's ever been any gear that you wanted to try out, now is the opportunity. Visit the link in this episode's description and head over to Lens Rentals now.
Yeah, I shoot Canon.
Canon.
My first ever camera was a Nikon, but the J school had gear that we could rent out, and then the gear that the paper used was all Canon, and then so that's pretty much all I've used, and I like it.
Yeah, you go with what you know. I think my husband, he's the one that got me into photography, like even interested in it, and all of his film gear, because he shot film, is Nikon, and so I started shooting film, but then when I bought a digital camera, it was Canon, and so I've been with Canon since then. What's if you only had one lens that you could use? I know that's crazy because you shoot football, but given you have a little bit more access, like I feel like you can get closer sometimes, so you don't have to stress as much about like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
I would say the 85. That's my favorite, and I remember because Kyle also loves that one, so anytime he was using it, I was like, "Can I use the 85?" And I don't know, I like the fixed lenses, but yeah, the 85. But trying to get like, I think it's a 1.4, and that focus is just like it's so tricky. Yeah. But no, I love that lens. It's so nice.
It is so nice. Have you shot any mirrorless at all? Have you tried the Canon like 5R? Is it 5R?
No, I have not tried that.
The 85 on that is pretty nice. I think it's a 1.2.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, maybe it's a 1.4. I think it's a 1.2 though. Yeah, it's pretty nice. No, that's awesome. I'm not like a gearhead by any means or anything like that, but I'm just always curious to hear what people shoot with. I'm sure like with being at a journalism school and like working for a paper, you just learn to shoot with whatever you had.
In my first game, I first couple of games with the paper, I just had like a 70 to 200. So I was just running up and down the sidelines, just like trying to follow the play. And then, yeah, like looking back now, I'm like, which lens should I use today?
Yeah. Are you, is that all provided by the Bucks, or is that something, are you using both yours and theirs, or just yours, or how does that work with being part of a team?
Here. Yeah. So don't, I just have like my first camera, which is like a little Nikon, because our journalism school provided gear, which is great. And then both internships provided gear, which is
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
helpful. Because yeah, like I mean, when you think about all the gear that you need and how much stuff it is, like it's a lot of money, especially with an internship. Most of the time, you're still in college. Like that's just not money college kids have like laying around. And so I think the big thing was like the J school, like they had we used 5Ds, and then they had a 300, they had 70 to 200, they had a bunch of different lenses. So like, and you could rent them out. And I think that was so helpful, because
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't afford gear and you don't have the option to rent for free, I mean, it was part of our tuition kind of thing. I think that's such a disadvantage. So I was very grateful to have gear provided from both my internships.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, I know. I just think about that sometimes. Like, how in the world do you, especially when you're trying to learn, and I mean, there's just no way. And I see some of the cameras that the students that are at UNC use, and I think, oh, that would be so tough. But like, it's such a good way to learn too, though. Really learn to like put yourself in position to get the photo and not worry so much about like. I mean, you just make do with what you have, I guess.
Yeah.
Let me think. Okay, last question, and then I'll let you go. If you had any advice that you could give to someone who was just starting out in sports photography, what would you say? And maybe, no, yeah. So what would you say? Like, if you were speaking to yourself and you were like, hey, this is what you should do, or these are some of my tips, or this is my advice for you.
I would say, one, that it's okay to mess up. Photography, for me at least, is trial and error. So, take a bad photo, figure out why it was bad, and then make your next photo better. And then I guess the other one is to understand and be confident in your abilities. I think a lot of like starting out is you hear what, oh, this person's been doing it for 30 years, and they say that, they only crop their photos in squares. And it's such a subjective field that like I kind of had to learn, like, take everything with a grain of salt. Like, just because one person does it one way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just how some people do it. And I think it's really easy for someone young and starting out and seeing, especially with social media, seeing like what, other people are doing, that they don't get the ability to figure out what their style is, because they're so focused on seeing what someone else is doing or someone else has done. So I'm always like, if you see the way someone's doing something and you're like, I don't know if I like that, like, that's okay. Doesn't mean like that person's wrong. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It's just not your style. And like, there's no reason to, lose, your opinion or your style. And I learned that early on. I had, some professors, who would be like, well, I think it needs to be like this. And I'm like, well, I don't agree. So, I'm not. Or, one professor would say, oh, it should be vertical. And the other one's like, it's a horizontal photo. And I was like, all right, well, neither of you, like,
I'm making it square.
Yeah. So I guess that's a big thing, is to not lose yourself, and also just have the confidence in your gut. And if, you feel like, I really like this photo and I think it works. And if that's what you think and you believe, like, I think go for it. I think it's such a subjective and opinionated field that, but be open to what people are saying, listen to them. Everyone's got a different path, a different style, a different technique. And I think everyone's worth learning from, whether you are like, oh, I'm not going to do that, or like, that's really great, I've never thought of that. So I think those would be my two biggest things.
Wow, I literally have not heard anybody ever say that before. I think that is just like such solid advice there.
Yeah, I mean, I think starting out, I mean, I've just turned 23, so I've gotten, they mean well, but it's like, well, I've been doing this for longer than you've been alive, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm still here too. Like we're both here, and I appreciate the opinion, but being confident, not feeling like just because someone has years of experience on you means that you're less capable of doing it. I think experience and capability don't necessarily go hand in hand. And so, yeah, I always want people, especially people coming up, to see the learning opportunities, but don't feel like you have to lose yourself or your eye or your style to fit a mold, because at that point, like, you're just like, you blend in, and what's the fun in that?
Yeah. Wow, that's great. That's great advice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great. I was like, I would really. Well, number one, I just wanted to get to know you better too. I've seen you in passing on like Instagram and stuff like that, and I've seen, oh, well, we kind of know some of the same people, but because sports photography world can be small, but if people want to find you besides on Instagram, is there a good place to do that, or is Instagram the place to be?
Yeah, Instagram's the place to be, at least for me, I guess. I would say,
yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you too.
Yeah, it's been great to talk to you, get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Have a good one. Hopefully we can get back into sports later, or soon, not later. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, and I look forward to, this is going to be interesting to see Tom Brady at the Bucs. I'm super excited for you guys.
Yeah, this is an exciting and different year for everyone, so.
Yeah. All right, well, take it easy.
All right, see ya.
Thank you for checking out this episode of We Shoot Sports, a podcast all about sports photography. As always, if there's a photographer you would like me to bring on the show, feel free to reach out to me at We Shoot Sports on Instagram. We'll see you guys on the next one.